Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons. Make sure to subscribe and let's get into it, guys. I don't want this video to be too long, so we are going to do basically what we did with the tech trees, but with missiles, starting with the AIM-7. If you like this video, leave it in the comments. We are planning to actually do like this in the AIM-9, in the Russian missiles, and maybe Chinese missiles, European missiles, everything like that, right? Israelis, everything. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit, tiny bit of the history of the missile, the aircraft that can get it right now and in the soonish future, and in general, you know, what are the performance stats of the missiles and what missiles can be added as well. So let's start with the AIM-7C, okay? So after tests with the original prototype that it was called, I think, AIM-6, but the AIM-7C basically got into production in January 1958, and he entered in service in August 1958. The missile had an aerojet solid-fueled rocket motor and 30 kilograms of a Mark 38 continuous rod warhead to actually destroy the targets. About 2,000 AIM-7Cs were built. This was a very initial AIM-7, you know, so as you see, very late 50s, you know, kind of situation. The main aircraft that actually used that thing was the F-3H, the Demon that we have in game. So yeah, this was the first semi-active Sparrow that they were testing. You know, before that it was kind of being riding kind of situation. So this was a proper semi-active missile, way better than the old technology, right? It has a 416 meters per second delta V. The delta V is basically a measurement of acceleration amount, you know, that you can actually have. I'm not sure if you can call it acceleration, but it's pretty much the amount of energy that the missile has, right? So this one has 416 meters per second. It has a 15G limit, and the effective range should be pretty limited, with the max being around 15 kilometers in good conditions, but it can do a little bit more maybe in optimal conditions. So yeah, of course, after that we got the AIM-7D, which was basically produced 1 year after the C, so 1959, and it had a new Timecodes Mark 6 Mod 3 liquid propellant rocket motor, so a little bit different than the older one, which was basically the objective with it was to increase the effective range and ceiling of the missile. It also had an improved guidance system for higher closing rates and anti-jammer capability. The USAF adopted this missile in the F4C, you know, after 1962. So it's a late, very late 50s, early 60s missile, right? So it has a new engine on it, so the F4C could use it, and the F4B if we ever got it. And with the new engine, it got a 530 delta V, so around 1/5 more energy for the missile, so way better. Still has the same limited 15G limit of turn, and the effective range due to the new engine, you know, is increased a little bit. I would say that the effective range is still around 15, 16, 17 kilometers, but it obviously can get to more if you put it into the right, you know, right window, basically. Then we have the AIM-7Es. The AIM-7E is an improved version, also improved version, right? Which entered in service in 1963, used a new propulsion system, so also a new engine, and a new, basically the new motor provided with more range. The effective range, of course, depend on, as always, on firing parameters, but in optimal conditions it could get to 35 kilometers, so way better than the older ones. Still, the effective range should be around 25, something like that. I can get kills like that in War Thunder, but it depends. It has 563 meters per second more, so 33 more than the D variant, so the energy is pretty much the same. And it has an increase 25 Gs, so 10 Gs or more than the older D variant. Of course, these missiles were used in the F4Es and stuff. And of course, we have to talk about the AIM-7E2 and the E4. So the E2 was basically the same missile. It has the problem of not having the actual longer range being available for these missiles in early Vietnam War, you know, and during the Vietnam War in general, because of the IFF capabilities, the identifications from friendlies or foes in the radar were pretty limited, you know, so you cannot basically use these missiles in a BVR situation normally in Vietnam. So they basically decided to do a conversion on these missiles to be also a dogfight missile. So that would help a little bit more, you know. It entered in service in 1969, so it was already mid, you know, Vietnam War, and it was dubbed the dogfight missile. It has a shorter minimum range, clipped wings for higher maneuverability, and improved autopilot fusing. So in general, due to the drag and stuff, it should have a little bit more of a delta V, 580, so 17 meters per second more, and the same 25 Gs. But the thing is that, in theory, the range of these missiles would be the same as the E. But the thing is that it depends on where your nose is. You know, if your nose is too far away from the original target, the missile will take a lot of its energy just in a very short turn. So it feels like it has less energy than the E if you're shooting at a 25 kilometer range that you normally never do in these missiles. But still, for shorter ranges, it's way better. It will turn way better. So, of course, the F4E used that, and the F-15A used that as well. Initially, it was the missile. I don't know about the F-15 using the E4, but the F-14 used the E4. The E4 was the same missile as the E2, but it was adapted for the use of high-powered fighter radars. So it has the same energy, 580 meters per second, 25 Gs, but it has basically the same level of performance, the same level of everything as the E2, but it was just integrated to the F-14. So please, Gaijin, change the naming. E4 is the correct name for the AIM-7E for the F-14, okay? And then we go for the truly quote-unquote modern ones. You know, we start with the AIM-7F, one that everybody loves and, you know, likes. The F-14A could use it. The F-4J, of course, they already did. And the F-4N, for example, could use it if it's ever added. It featured a new dual thrust boost sustainer rocket motor, the Hercules Mark 58, which greatly increased the missile's range, you know. So that's the main feature, you know, of it. So that together with a solid state electronic guide and control system. So yeah, it was basically compatible with pulse Doppler radars in a better way, together with a better autopilot, with the guidance system, and the better engine. Production began in 1975. You know, full service was around 1976, 77, something like that, I don't remember. But it was produced until 1981. It has 955 meters per second of a delta V, so way more than the original AIM-7s, almost twice as much. So yeah, it continued to have the 25 Gs, and it has a way better range as well. The aerodynamic range could get to 60 to 70 kilometers in an optimal, a normal, like, effective range. And in theory, it could even get to, in a very, very optimal condition, it could get to 90 kilometers. But basically, the seeker doesn't allow to, right? The seeker doesn't have the sensitivity to see a target that far away, so this missile is limited to 40 kilometers, even though it does have more range in its capabilities aerodynamically, but and ballistically, if you will, but the seeker doesn't have the range. So that's the main problem. So 40 kilometers is the max range. Then, of course, they developed the AIM-7M in the early 80s. The new feature, the main feature of it, the new thing about it was the new inverse monopulse seeker. So it basically improved it, or actually gave the AIM-7 a look down, shoot down capability. So not only is capable of being fired in a very correct way with pulse Doppler radars, it can actually hit targets that are flying very low to the ground. So yeah, the monopulse seeker improves the missile performance in a low altitude and ECM environments. Other new features of the AIM-7M was a digital computer, and an autopilot was improved, right? And the active fuse as well. So it was basically a missile that, in theory, in War Thunder, it should have a better autopilot in a sense, right? It should be able to hit targets flying low in a better way than AIM-7F, and it should basically fly in a more optimized way. Everything else should be the same as the AIM-7F, you know, so it still has the same level of energy, 955 meters per second, 25 Gs, and the range is basically the same as the F. So it could get to a little bit more due to the new seeker. It should have around 45 kilometers, but beyond that, it's really hard to actually be able to get it. And then we have to the new variants. And I forgot to mention, of course, the F14B used it. The F20 could use it if it's ever added. The F4G, which is basically an F4E that can do seed and other stuff like that. And even the F-18. So this should be the 80s missile that most of these aircraft will receive and already have it, right? And then, of course, in the late 80s, we have these two missiles. These two missiles, they're basically the same. They just have a different designation. Sometimes the MH is called, in the USAF, I think, as the MH. And the P is sometimes called P in the Navy only, right? So, yeah, but they're both basically the same missile. Okay, so they are improved AIM-7M, so they take the AIM-7M and improve that. The missiles were built and converted from 1987 onwards, you know, and it featured a new improved guidance electronic control systems, a new onboard computer, a new radar fuse, and it has an uplink to the autopilot for mid-course guidance updates, which means that technically it has a data link, not a very, like, I don't know this uplink, how good it is. It's really difficult to find information on it. But if it works like the R-27, it should make the missile have an increased range. So basically the idea was that maybe you cannot lose the lock itself, but it probably should have an INS as well. But the idea is that because of the uplink from the aircraft, it can actually increase the range. So basically they would have the same level of aerodynamic performance as the other ones, but they would not have the limit of a 40 kilometer, 45 kilometer shot due to the seeker. So you can actually fire them from like 60 kilometers or so. So making them very much as close as the Americans could against like an R-27ER in the sense of range, right? And yeah, I really don't understand why these missiles are not added yet. I mean, at least for the F-16s, right? Maybe for the F-14Bs, they got into service at the same time as these missiles. So it kind of doesn't make sense, right? So yeah, it was really, really good at low-flying small targets. And it has even two sub-variants, the Block 1 and Block 2. The Block 1 has a new guidance section, and the Block 2 has a new radar receiver, so for the data link probably, right? So yeah, energy-wise, it is the same as the other ones. So 955 meters per second of delta V, 25 Gs, and also the same range originally, 40 kilometers, but with the improved, with the seeker, right? But with the improved, data link kind of system, you could get, in theory, more distance. So 50, 60, 70, maybe more, I don't know. But at least I would say 60 and 70 kilometers would be able to be used in this missile. And it definitely has the energy for it. So yeah, please guiding add for the ADF and the F-14. Of course, F-15s that they add, MSIPs or F-16C Block 30s, 1990s F-15s, the F-18A pluses or F-14Ds, F-18Cs, everything like that could use this missile. And really, guys, I mean, come on, add these missiles. It would really bridge the gap between the AIM-7M and F to the AIM-120, and also bridge the gap a little bit between the R-27ER and the AIM-7, because right now the R-27ER is a way more effective missile in the BVR arena, right? And even at closer ranges, because it has the INS, so if you lose the lock, you can actually reacquire the lock later. The AIM-7, you have a tiny margin there, but it's probably going to self-explode before you can do that. But anyway, guys, this is it for the AIM-7s. These are the AIM-7s that we have in game and that we could see in the future. So hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe and leave it in the comments if you want to see more of these types of videos, okay? Bye, guys. See ya.